The Galactic Tribunal chamber stretched like a cathedral of steel and shadow, lit by cold blue beams that poured from alien architecture. John Carter knelt in chains, his head bowed, shoulders trembling under the unseen weight of billions watching. Judge Xalar's voice cracked the silence like a blade, his towering alien form glowing under pale starlight. Xalar said, "Humanity's crimes are boundless, its recklessness unforgivable. The sentence is extermination." The words echoed through the chamber, final and absolute. John's throat tightened, his chest burning with a fear he refused to show. He raised his head just enough to meet the judge's inhuman gaze, eyes bloodshot but unbroken. Around him, alien emissaries whispered, their expressions a mix of disgust and triumph. Silence thickened after the sentence, a silence so heavy it smothered hope itself. Then from the shadows barely audible came a whisper that cut deeper than judgment. "They're not just judging you. They're judging us all." John's chest rose and fell as silence swallowed the tribunal after the verdict. His thoughts raced, clawing for something that could save his species. He remembered his mother's hands, once warm against his cheek, now only ashes scattered by war. He thought of soldiers who fought beside him, their bodies broken, their faith betrayed by leaders like Marcus Hale. Judge Xalar remained frozen in detachment, his cold glare casting John as less than sentient. Around him whispers swelled in alien tongues, like waves crashing against stone. John said, "You call us reckless, but you fear what you cannot break." His voice trembled, but carried sparks of defiance. Chains rattled as he tried to rise, only to be forced down by guards. The chamber darkened as projections of humanity's wars flickered across towering walls, painting humanity as monsters. Yet the quiet eyes of Seraphis lingered, glowing faintly with something that felt like doubt. The air reeked of finality as alien guards pressed John back against cold metal. His knees ached, his skin burned under the grip of their claws. Marcus Hale stood nearby, his voice calm, dripping venom disguised as reason. Marcus said, "You should accept this, John. Humanity deserves its fate. We're only delaying the inevitable." John's eyes cut toward him, fury sparking despite exhaustion. "You traded your soul for survival," John said, his voice hoarse. Admiral Vena watched, lips pursed, her silence more damning than words. Images of Earth's violence filled the chamber. Burning cities, starving children, collapsing towers. Each flicker struck like a blade, but John saw distortions, fabrications twisted into truth. He whispered to himself, "Not all of this is real." Seraphis' luminous gaze shifted, as though the thought reached them through unspoken means. Judge Xalar's crystalline form pulsed faintly as he spoke. "Your kind has written its own end in blood." His words rolled like thunder across the hall. John forced his head up, his jaw clenched, blood streaking from a split lip. He spat words that carried defiance. "We bleed, but we endure. That is what you fear." Murmurs surged across the gallery, alien voices layered like storms. Admiral Vena straightened, her eyes narrowing as though John's defiance unsettled her certainty. Marcus Hale smirked faintly, confident in humanity's fall. Behind them, holographic displays magnified Earth's history, each atrocity exaggerated, each act of cruelty framed as defining. Yet within John's gaze burned a stubborn spark, a reminder of every life he carried within him. For an instant, silence returned, heavy and suffocating, as though the chamber itself hesitated to draw breath. Chains clattered as guards dragged John toward the center, forcing him to kneel beneath the tribunal seal, an emblem burning above like a cruel sun. His body trembled, but his voice broke through the silence. "You call us guilty of fear, but it is your fear that drives this judgment." Judge Xalar's crystalline form leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Fear has no place here, only justice." Marcus Hale's smirk faltered for an instant, shadows flickering across his face. Seraphis lowered their gaze, lips moving in silent words, unheard by others. The holographic projections dimmed, leaving John's scarred figure bathed in stark light. Every eye, alien and human, bore down on him, pressing like a weight that threatened to crush him. Yet within the silence, something shifted. Doubt, faint but real, rippled through the chamber. The cold walls of the tribunal cell closed around John Carter as he sat against the steel floor, his breath shallow. Memories returned like knives, piercing without mercy. He saw his father's grave marked by scorched earth, his mother's smile fading in smoke, his comrades falling one by one in battlefields drenched with mud and fire. Every scar on his skin carried a story of survival, yet none erased the guilt etched deeper than bone. Marcus Hale's betrayal haunted him most, the moment trust crumbled into ruin. John whispered to himself, "I was never chosen because I was strong. I was chosen because I was broken." Shadows stretched long across the cell, flickering as faint energy pulses rippled through its walls. Somewhere deep in the silence, John's heartbeat reminded him he was still alive, and as long as he endured, humanity still had a voice. The air hummed with faint static as John closed his eyes, memories bleeding into the present. He saw himself as a boy running through fields under a clear sky, laughter echoing with freedom. That laughter turned into screams as warplanes tore across the horizon, leaving fire in their wake. Faces of friends lost returned, their voices whispering promises they could never keep. John pressed his palms against his temples, trembling, muttering, "I carry them with me." His chest burned as though the ghosts themselves weighed him down. He remembered Marcus Hale, once a comrade, now standing as judge and betrayer. The thought twisted like a blade. Yet beneath the flood of pain, something fierce sparked, an ember that refused to die. His scars were not just marks of suffering, but proof that even shattered men could still stand. Chains rattled faintly as John shifted, pressing his back against the wall. He stared upward, eyes tracing the ceiling where alien glyphs pulsed with faint light. He remembered Marcus Hale's voice on the battlefield years ago, once shouting encouragement, now cold with betrayal. John muttered bitterly, "You wore loyalty like a mask." His hands clenched until shackles cut into his skin. He thought of Admiral Vena, her silence like a dagger, her authority twisted into submission. The weight of betrayal burned hotter than wounds from war. Yet in that heaviness, a stubborn will emerged. He whispered, "I am not their weapon. I am not their shame." The cell responded only with silence, but the silence no longer crushed. It shaped him, reforging his spirit into something unyielding. Hours blurred in the cell, each second dragging like chains. John's mind drifted into a battlefield long gone. Smoke curled across ruined cities, the cries of children piercing the roar of engines. He saw himself holding a fallen soldier's hand, promising survival when he knew the truth was death. That soldier's eyes still haunted him, wide and pleading. John whispered, "I failed him. I failed them all." His voice cracked, but no tears came. He had long forgotten how to weep. In the silence, a faint shimmer caught his eye. Seraphis, barely visible through the bars, their translucent form glowing softly. Their gaze carried no contempt, only sorrow. For the first time, John felt seen, not as a monster, but as a man still clinging to fragments of dignity. The cell remained silent after Seraphis faded into the shadows, but their presence lingered like a fragile ember. John leaned forward, resting his forehead against his chained hands. His voice steadied, no longer weak. He said, "They chose me because they thought I would break, but I am the weight of every ghost they created." The air vibrated faintly, as though the cell itself absorbed his words. Beyond the walls, alien voices murmured, their tones sharp and impatient. John closed his eyes, inhaling slowly, remembering his mother's final words, "Endure." The memory struck like lightning, filling him with a force beyond fear. He clenched his fists and whispered, "I will endure." The silence that followed no longer felt suffocating. It felt like preparation for the storm to come. The tribunal chamber flared alive with projections of Earth's darkest moments. Burning cities towered in fire, famine-stricken children reached for scraps, and soldiers carved violence across the walls. John Carter stood shackled at the center, every atrocity projected as if he had authored them. Judge Xelar's voice thundered, "This is the truth of your kind." The crowd hissed with alien tongues, waves of disgust rolling through the chamber. Marcus Hale stepped forward, his words sharp as steel. Marcus said, "Humanity consumes everything. It cannot be trusted." John's breath shook, but he managed to say, "You show them our sins, but never our sacrifice." His voice cracked but carried, the sound rising through the chaos. Admiral Vena's silence was heavier than judgment itself, her gaze fixed without mercy. Yet through the flood of condemnation, John's eyes caught flickers of distortion. Some images did not belong to Earth. Something was being twisted. The images shifted violently, showcasing humanity's wars magnified into monstrous scales. Nuclear firestorms erupted across the tribunal walls, drowning the chamber in red and orange light. John's stomach turned, not just from guilt, but from recognition of fabrications. He whispered, "That was never Earth." Judge Xylar ignored him, his voice unyielding. "Your history is nothing but ruin." Marcus Hale's lips curled into a smile, satisfied with the spectacle. John's throat burned as he shouted, "You fear us, so you invent more reasons to hate us." His chains rattled against the metallic floor, his body fighting to rise. The audience stirred, alien voices rising into a chorus of condemnation. Seraphis' luminous eyes glimmered in silence, their expression unreadable. John felt fury boiling, but beneath it lay something colder, clarity that this trial was not about truth, but about destruction already decided. Alien gods shoved John back to the floor, his body slamming against steel. Pain flared across his ribs, yet his gaze never wavered from the shifting lies above. Admiral Vena raised her chin, her voice sharp. "Even your defenders know. Silence is wiser than denial." John's teeth clenched, blood dripping down his lip. "Silence is not wisdom. It is betrayal," he spat. Marcus Hale stepped closer, his polished boots echoing. He said, "I saw enough of humanity's chaos. We need order, not pride." John glared at him, his words cutting through clenched teeth. "You surrendered your soul for their chains." The crowd roared in approval of Marcus' words, their alien tongues like thunder. Yet John's defiance carved a fracture, one noticed by Seraphis, whose glowing gaze softened as though a fragile seed of doubt had taken root in the darkness. The holograms above twisted again, showing humanity's cruelty magnified, but now John saw cracks. Alien wars disguised as Earth's history bled into the projection. He raised his voice, trembling with fury. "These are not our crimes, they are yours." The chamber erupted with gasps, some alien voices falling silent. Judge Xylar's crystalline form flared, his tone sharpened. "You dare accuse us?" John's chains rattled as he leaned forward, his voice raw. "You fear our endurance, so you bury us under lies." Marcus Hale's smirk faltered, though he quickly masked it with a sneer. Admiral Vena's gaze flickered with unease for the first time, though she said nothing. Seraphis shifted subtly, their hands folding as their luminous forms shimmered faintly brighter. For a moment, silence hung heavy, not of condemnation but of doubt pressing through the fractures. Night fell in the tribunal prison, silence broken only by faint hums from energy walls. John sat hunched, his breath shallow, his body aching. Yet his mind replayed the distortions he had seen, the evidence of conspiracy hidden in plain sight. He whispered, "They built this trial to bury the truth." From the darkness, a faint glow approached. Seraphis stepped close to the bars, their luminous eyes filled with sorrow. Their voice was soft but steady. Seraphis said, "If you want truth, you must survive tomorrow." John's heart pounded, his breath sharp as he looked into the alien's sorrowful gaze. His lips parted, trembling. "Why help me?" Seraphis lowered their head, their forms shimmering faintly. "Because I have seen this before. Entire species erased, not for crimes but for fear." Silence deepened, but now it carried a fragile spark of hope. The next dawn inside the tribunal chamber revealed no mercy. Instead of execution, John Carter was dragged into an arena designed for spectacle. The ground shimmered with shifting metal plates, the air thick with electric haze. Judge Silar declared, "This is the trial of ordeal, where humanity proves its worth or dies in disgrace." Chains were torn from John, but not in kindness. Alien guards thrust him forward, leaving his body to stagger on trembling legs. The crowd roared with cruel anticipation, alien voices echoing across the walls. Marcus Hale's voice cut through, smooth and venomous. "You will show them how weak we truly are." John clenched his fists, bloodied but unbroken, and rasped, "Then let them see how much pain we can survive." The air itself seemed to hold its breath as the first test began, a trial designed to break both body and spirit. The first ordeal struck without warning. The floor split apart, revealing pits of searing energy that hissed like liquid fire. John leapt aside, his body screaming from exhaustion, his scars tearing open. The tribunal's voice rang in judgment, "Survive or perish." Alien weapons extended from the walls, firing arcs of blinding light that seared the air around him. Each strike forced John to dive, roll, and crawl, his every movement soaked in agony. Marcus Hale leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Admiral Vena remained stoic, her gaze fixed, unwilling to betray reaction. John gasped through clenched teeth, "I am still here." His words carried across the chamber, defiance etched into every syllable. The audience murmured in disbelief, many expecting him to fall within moments. Yet John endured, refusing to collapse under the weight of orchestrated torment. The second ordeal unfolded with cruel precision. Blades of shifting steel rose from the arena floor, slicing upward with deadly intent. John barely dodged, his arm grazed, blood flowing freely down his skin. The crowd cheered at his suffering, their voices like thunder. Judge Silar announced, "Weakness reveals truth." John staggered to his feet, his breath ragged, his vision swimming with pain. "You mistake endurance for weakness," he shouted, voice raw but defiant. Marcus Hale smirked faintly, whispering to those near him, "Watch him crawl. This is the end." Yet John refused to yield, forcing himself forward, step by step. Each wound bled, but each step was a statement. Humanity would not vanish easily. Seraphis' luminous form flickered brighter, their sorrowful eyes fixed firmly on John, as if silently urging him to survive what was never meant to be survived. By the third ordeal, John's body was breaking. He collapsed onto one knee as walls of searing wind rose, threatening to tear flesh from bone. The audience leaned forward, expecting collapse, but he forced himself to rise again, his voice strained. "Pain is not defeat." Judge Silar's crystalline form shimmered, unimpressed. "You defy inevitability." Marcus Hale stepped forward, his voice loud enough for all to hear. "You were never chosen as humanity's savior. You were chosen as its scapegoat." The words pierced John like daggers. His chest heaved, fury boiling, yet he straightened, bleeding and trembling. "Then, let me carry every sin, because I will not break." His words struck harder than any blade, and for the first time, murmurs of unease rippled through the alien crowd. Seraphis lowered their head, luminous skin pulsing with conflicted sorrow and fragile hope. The ordeal ended not with John's collapse, but with revelation. His body swayed, drenched in blood and sweat, yet he stood. The silence was heavy, broken only by his ragged breath. Judge Ixalar said, "Your resilience proves nothing but recklessness." Then Marcus Hale stepped forward, his mask of composure cracking into a cruel smile. "This was never about justice," he said, his voice sharp and damning. "It was always about fear." The chamber erupted with shock, alien voices clashing in disarray. John's head turned toward Hale, betrayal burning hotter than wounds. "You were with them all along." Marcus' eyes glinted with satisfaction. "I chose survival. You chose defiance." For the first time, the truth pierced through the performance. Humanity was not on trial for crimes, but because the galaxy feared what it could become if allowed to endure. The chamber was silent as John Carter rose slowly, blood dripping from his torn skin, chains hanging broken at his wrists. Billions of eyes watched through holographic streams, the galaxy waiting for collapse. Yet instead of pleading, John lifted his head, his voice raw but steady. "You wanted me to break, but I will speak." His words echoed across the chamber, carried by defiance. Judge Ixalar's crystalline form pulsed, but he did not interrupt. John's chest heaved as he spoke of mothers burying sons, fathers shielding daughters, and children who still laughed under skies scarred by fire. "We suffer, yet we endure. That is what makes us dangerous to you." Murmurs spread through the alien crowd, their certainty shaken. Marcus Hale's smirk faltered. Admiral Vena's eyes narrowed, her silence shifting into unease. For the first time, John's voice pierced the walls built against him. John's words cut deeper than the blades of the ordeal. His voice grew stronger with each sentence, no longer trembling. "You show our sins, but you never show our sacrifices. We are flawed, yes, but we love, we endure, we rise again." Alien factions shifted uneasily, whispers flooding the chamber like storm winds. Judge Ixalar raised his hand, yet even he hesitated, crystalline features flickering with uncertainty. Marcus Hale spat bitterly. "You twist tragedy into triumph. They'll see through you." John's eyes locked on him, unyielding. "I don't ask for mercy, I show them what you fear." The words reverberated like thunder, shaking walls built on lies. For the first time, fragments of hope flared in the silence, fragile but undeniable. Seraphis' luminous gaze glowed brighter, their sorrow now interwoven with belief. The crowd stirred violently as John continued, his words unraveling the tribunal's narrative. "You feared us because we returned from ashes. You feared us because love binds us stronger than any chain." His voice reached every projection, every corner of the galaxy. Judge Ixalar's glare hardened, but the tide of doubt spread like fire. Admiral Vena shifted uneasily, her stern face betraying cracks of conflict. Marcus Hale hissed toward her, "Stay silent, or you fall with him." But she did not respond. Seraphis finally spoke, their voice soft but cutting. "Truth cannot be buried under lies forever." Gasps filled the chamber, shock that one of their own had broken ranks. John's body trembled, his blood pooling beneath him, but he stood taller, his voice turning into a beacon of resistance that pierced through despair. The weight of revelation deepened as John's hidden legacy surfaced. Whispers spread like wildfire through alien factions. He was not simply a prisoner, but tied to bloodlines feared across the stars. The tribunal faltered, their authority cracking. Judge Ixalar growled, "This is not legacy, this is blasphemy." John raised his head, defiance shining in scarred eyes. "My existence proves your fear is greater than your justice." Marcus Hale's face twisted, his calm unraveling. "You should have died long ago." The crowd roared with uncertainty, torn between fear and awe. Amidst the storm, Liora stepped forward, her delicate form trembling, eyes glowing faintly with alien alteration. John's breath caught as he whispered, "Lyra?" Her presence struck him like lightning, a reminder of innocence stolen. Her lips parted, fragile words trembling. "They cannot silence us all." The chamber trembled with the weight of her defiance. The chamber reached breaking point as Liora's trembling defiance turned to sacrifice. Guards surged forward, weapons drawn, aiming to silence her. Without hesitation, she threw herself before John, her body catching the strike meant for him. John's scream tore through the chamber, raw and broken. He caught her fragile body as she fell, her glowing eyes dimming. She whispered, "Live, so they cannot erase us." Her words shattered what remained of John's restraint. He lifted his head, blood and grief burning in his voice. "We are not asking for mercy. We are demanding recognition." The chamber froze, stunned by the weight of the declaration. Alien factions erupted into chaos, some roaring for extermination, others for justice. John's figure, stood drenched in blood and grief, transformed into the living symbol of a truth that could no longer be silenced. Chains once again bit into John Carter's wrists as guards dragged him toward the execution platform. His body shook from blood loss, yet his head remained high. The tribunal's voice was final, Judge Sylar declaring, "The sentence of extermination stands." Billions watched through shimmering holographic streams, their cries divided, some demanding justice, others demanding survival. John's eyes burned with grief, Liora's sacrifice still carved deep into his chest. "You will not erase us," he whispered hoarsely, his words more vow than plea. Marcus Hale walked beside him, cold satisfaction etched across his features. "It ends here, John." John turned his head, defiance piercing through exhaustion. "No, Marcus, it begins here." The chamber shook with the noise of alien factions clashing, chaos boiling against the brittle order of the tribunal. The verdict had been given, but the storm had only begun. The guards forced John to his knees, the tribunal seal glowing overhead like a merciless sun. Judge Zilar raised his crystalline arm, the light refracting like blades across the chamber. "For the crimes of humanity, the line ends here." The crowd erupted in divided fury, voices clashing like storms. John lifted his face, broken yet defiant. "You call this justice, but it is fear that guides your hand." The words rippled through the gallery, igniting unrest. Seraphis rose from the shadows, their luminous form glowing brighter than ever before. Their voice cut into the chaos. "This is no trial. This is a conspiracy of fear." Gasps shattered the chamber as alien factions turned on each other, shouting accusations. Admiral Vena shifted, her stoic mask cracking, eyes flickering with hesitation. The tribunal's control was slipping into chaos, and John could feel the tide turn. The chamber descended into chaos. Alien factions rose, shouting, some demanding extermination, others shouting for mercy. Energy weapons sparked as guards clashed with protesters in the galleries. John watched from his knees, chains rattling, the storm proving what he had said all along: fear was the true verdict. Marcus Hale stood tall amidst the chaos, sneering. "This changes nothing. They will still bury you." John's eyes blazed as he replied, "They cannot bury what already lives inside them." The words pierced through noise, carried by the raw conviction of a man with nothing left to lose. Judge Zyla roared to silence the chamber, his crystalline body flaring with harsh light, but even he faltered under the wave of dissent spreading through his peers. The tribunal no longer spoke with one voice. It fractured, as fragile as glass under pressure. Seraphis stepped forward, their luminous skin glowing like a beacon through the chaos. Their voice rose, clear and undeniable. "This tribunal is a lie. Humanity is not on trial for crimes. They are condemned for what they might become." The chamber erupted again, alien voices clashing, but the truth could not be unseen. John's chest heaved as he whispered, "They fear our endurance." Admiral Vena's gaze softened for a fleeting instant, her lips parting as though to speak, but Marcus Hale snapped at her, "Do not betray us now." She turned away, silence her only shield. Judge Salar's eyes blazed with fury. "Enough. Order will not be destroyed by doubt." Yet even his authority cracked beneath the weight of revelation. The conspiracy had been exposed, and the galaxy itself had witnessed it unravel before their eyes. The verdict of extermination still echoed, but the chamber was no longer united. Riots flared in the galleries, alien factions colliding in violence. Guards struggled to maintain control as chaos spread like wildfire. John was dragged toward the execution altar, but he refused to bow. His body swayed, chains biting into his wrists, yet his voice rose above the storm. "You cannot erase us. You cannot bury us. Because we are already inside you, in your fear, in your memory, in the fire you tried to put out." His words froze the chamber for a heartbeat, silence falling heavy. Judge Ixalar's crystalline form flared with rage, but the cracks in his authority were visible. Marcus Hale's face twisted, fury breaking his mask of calm. The tribunal had not silenced humanity. Instead, John's defiance had burned its warning into the galaxy's memory forever. The execution halted not by mercy, but by chaos. Alien factions clashed across the tribunal, their voices shaking the steel foundations of the chamber. John Carter remained bound, bloodied but unbowed. Judge Excelar thundered, "Silence!" Yet his authority fractured beneath the uproar. John looked across the storming crowd, his voice raw. "You wanted humanity's end. But what you revealed is your own fear." His words carried beyond walls, transmitted across billions of streams. Marcus Hale's furious voice hissed, "Stop him or everything crumbles." But the gods hesitated, caught between orders and the unraveling tribunal. Seraphis stepped forward, luminous light blazing like fire, their sorrow turning to defiance. "Fear cannot erase truth," they said. The chamber shifted, not toward order but to collapse. Humanity's fate was no longer controlled by decree, but by the storm it had unleashed. The tribunal seal cracked above, sparks showering like falling stars as alien guards battled factions in the galleries. John's heart pounded, his chains biting deeper, yet his voice cut through the storm. "You cannot kill an idea. You cannot silence a people who endure." His eyes locked on Judge Selar, his tone sharper than blades. "You fear us because we survive, no matter how deep the wound." Selar flared with crystalline rage, declaring, "You mistake defiance for strength." John's reply thundered back, "Defiance is strength." The crowd trembled under his words, divisions widening into war. Marcus Hale pressed forward, shouting, "This chaos destroys us all." His face twisted as he realized the tribunal's control had slipped beyond repair. The judgment was broken, the galaxy now witness to its own unraveling. John was pulled to his feet by alien guards, but their grip faltered as riots spread like fire through the chamber. The galaxy's factions split live before billions. The tribunal's mask shattered. Admiral Vena's voice finally broke her silence, sharp but unsteady. "Perhaps we feared too much." Marcus Hale's eyes widened with rage, betrayal piercing him deeper than blades. "You dare side with them?" Vena's jaw clenched, her tone icy. "I side with survival." John's chest burned as he whispered, "Even in silence, humanity found allies." Seraphis moved closer, their glowing presence a fragile anchor in the chaos. Judge Excelar's roar echoed across the chamber. "This tribunal is finished." For the first time, John's lips curved into a faint, weary smile. "No, Judge. It has only begun." The chamber's violence spilled beyond control. Alien banners fell, holograms shattered into static, the tribunal reduced to fragments of fear and defiance. John's body swayed, his knees trembling, yet he forced himself upright despite chains. His voice rose again, steady and final. "You can chain me, bleed me, condemn me, but you will never erase me. Because humanity lives wherever fear of us lingers." The words rippled outward, stronger than judgment, sharper than weapons. Seraphis lowered their head, a sorrowful smile flickering. Admiral Vena turned away, shame burning across her face. Marcus Hale screamed, "Silence him," but no one moved. Judge Excelar's crystalline features dimmed, cracks splintering across his form. The tribunal was undone, not by force, but by truth spoken in blood and fire. The tribunal fell to silence at last. Fire smoldered across the chamber, alien factions retreating into bitter stalemates. Humanity was spared, not through victory but through fracture. John Carter stood unsteady, every scar burning, his body irreparably changed. Chains clattered to the floor as guards abandoned their posts, unsure of loyalty. He turned and walked from the ruins, the galaxy's eyes fixed on him, not in triumph but in awe of survival. Seraphis bowed their head, their light dimming as they vanished into the crowd. Admiral Vena's face was a mask of shame, while Marcus Hale seethed in silent fury. John whispered as he left, "They wanted a verdict. What they got was a warning. His figure disappeared into shadows, leaving behind a scar carved across the galaxy's conscience that would never heal.